There comes a moment in every soul's journey when you realize that the path everyone else is walking leads nowhere you want to go. You've felt it, haven't you? That growing dissonance between who you're expected to be and who you're becoming. The suffocating weight of conformity pressing down on your chest like a stone. The slow, agonizing death of your authentic self as you mold yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to contain you. You stand at the edge of the crowd, watching the endless parade of sameness, and something inside you whispers, "There has to be more than this." But with that whisper comes terror, because to step away from the herd means to step into the unknown. To abandon the safety of belonging means to risk the terrifying freedom of becoming. Tonight, I want to walk with you through that darkness, through the wilderness that awaits those brave enough to leave the well-worn paths of conformity. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this journey better than most. He knew that the price of authenticity is often isolation, and the cost of individuality is often loneliness. But he also knew something else, something that might change everything for you. He knew that in that wilderness, in that terrifying space between who you were and who you're becoming, something extraordinary happens. Something that the herd will never experience, never understand, and perhaps never forgive you for discovering. Let me show you what lies beyond the boundaries of belonging. Let me guide you through the territory that awaits when you finally find the courage to abandon the herd. Before we venture into the wilderness, we must first understand what we're leaving behind. The herd isn't just a collection of people following the same path. It's a psychological construct, a shared delusion that safety lies in sameness, that worth is measured by acceptance, that the highest good is to never make anyone uncomfortable with your authenticity. You've lived in this prison, haven't you? You've felt the invisible bars of expectation, the unspoken rules that govern how you speak, how you think, how you dream. You've learned to edit yourself, to compress your vastness into shapes that others can easily categorize and dismiss. The herd promises belonging, but delivers only the illusion of connection. It offers security, but provides only the false comfort of never having to think for yourself. It guarantees acceptance, but only if you agree to never fully exist. Nietzsche saw through this beautiful lie. He understood that what we call community is often just collective cowardice. What we call tradition is frequently just the accumulated fears of generations who chose comfort over growth, safety over truth, belonging over becoming. The individual, he wrote, has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. But he also knew that most people would rather be overwhelmed than stand alone. Most would rather disappear into the crowd than risk the terrible responsibility of becoming themselves. You feel this struggle, don't you? The part of you that wants to scream, to break free, to finally express the thoughts you've been thinking in secret, but also the part that trembles at the thought of standing alone, of facing the judgment of those who mistake your growth for betrayal. Here, in this space between conformity and individuality, we encounter what Carl Jung called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we've learned to hide, to repress, to deny. But the shadow isn't just our dark impulses, it's also our light that's too bright for others to bear. It's our truth that's too radical for the herd to accept. It's our authenticity that threatens the comfortable lies everyone has agreed to live by. When you begin to abandon the herd, your shadow emerges with a vengeance. All the thoughts you've suppressed, all the dreams you've buried, all the aspects of yourself you've deemed unacceptable, they rise to the surface like bodies from a lake. And this is where most people turn back. This is where they decide that conformity is easier than integration, that belonging is safer than wholeness. But Jung understood, as Nietzsche did, that the shadow isn't something to be conquered. It's something to be embraced. Your rejected parts aren't your enemies. They're the keys to your authentic power. The very things you've been ashamed of might be the very things that make you magnificent. I think of all the brilliant minds throughout history who were called mad, dangerous, heretical. Their crime wasn't evil, it was authenticity. They dared to think thoughts that had never been thought, to see truths that challenged the comfortable delusions of their time. They abandoned the herd not out of hatred, but out of love for something greater than belonging, the truth of their own becoming. Your shadow contains not just your darkness, but your suppressed light, the parts of you that are too creative, too intense, too real for the sanitized world of social acceptability. When you abandon the herd, these parts don't just surface. They begin to integrate, to become part of your conscious experience, to transform you into something the herd can no longer recognize or control. But here's what Nietzsche knew that few dare to acknowledge. The journey beyond the herd leads first through a valley of profound loneliness. Not the loneliness of being alone, but the deeper loneliness of being misunderstood, of carrying truths that no one around you can hear, of seeing realities that others refuse to acknowledge. This is the price of awakening. This is the cost of authenticity. When you begin to think your own thoughts, to feel your own feelings, to live your own truth, you discover that very few people are interested in the real you. They preferred the version of you that agreed with them, that made them comfortable, that never challenged their assumptions about reality. You'll find yourself in conversations where you must choose between truth and harmony, between authenticity and acceptance. You'll discover that many of your relationships were built on a foundation of mutual pretense, and when you stop pretending, the foundation crumbles. This is the wilderness Nietzsche spoke of, not a physical place, but a psychological space where you must learn to be alone with yourself, where you must find the courage to be your own companion, your own counsel, your own source of validation. But in this solitude, something miraculous begins to happen. You start to hear your own voice, not the echo of others' expectations, but the authentic song of your own soul. You begin to discover interests you never knew you had, thoughts you never knew you could think, capacities you never knew you possessed. The herd taught you to fear solitude, to see it as punishment. But Nietzsche knew it as liberation. In solitude, you're finally free to become who you actually are rather than who others need you to be. This is where the real transformation begins. When you abandon the herd and enter the wilderness of your own becoming, you don't just change, you evolve. You don't just grow, you metamorphose into something entirely new. Nietzsche called this process becoming who you are, but he understood that who you are isn't a fixed destination. It's an ongoing creation. Every day in the wilderness, every moment of solitude, every choice to honor your authenticity over others' comfort is an act of self-creation. The herd believes in discovering yourself, as if your true self were a buried treasure waiting to be found. But Nietzsche knew better. He understood that the self isn't discovered, it's forged. It's created through the choices you make, the values you embrace, the paths you choose to walk, even when no one else understands why. This is why abandoning the herd is so terrifying and so necessary. In the safety of conformity, you never have to take responsibility for your own becoming. You can always blame others for your limitations, point to society for your unfulfilled potential, hide behind the crowd's expectations as an excuse for your own cowardice. But in the wilderness, there are no excuses. There is only you and the terrifying, beautiful responsibility of creating yourself. Every thought you think, every value you choose, every action you take becomes a brushstroke in the painting of your existence. The herd creates followers. The wilderness creates individuals. The herd produces copies. The wilderness produces originals. But let's be honest about what keeps us tethered to the herd long after we've outgrown it. It's not just fear of loneliness or change. It's something deeper, more insidious. It's an addiction to approval, to validation, to the drug of external recognition. This addiction is as real and as destructive as any substance. You feel the withdrawal when you disappoint someone. You experience the craving when you're not receiving the attention you think you deserve. You go through the desperate seeking behavior, shaping yourself into whatever form you think will get you your next fix of acceptance. Jung understood this as the tyranny of the persona, the mask we wear to gain social approval. The persona isn't inherently evil, but when it becomes our master rather than our tool, it imprisons us more effectively than any external force could. When you abandon the herd, you're forced to confront this addiction head-on. You have to learn to find validation from within rather than from without. You have to discover your own worth rather than having it determined by others' opinions. You have to become your own source of approval rather than constantly seeking it from those who don't even know who you really are. This is perhaps the most difficult part of the journey. The herd provides a constant stream of potential approval. If you just say the right things, believe the right beliefs, conform to the right expectations. But in the wilderness, there's only you and your own judgment. You must learn to be enough for yourself, even when the world suggests you're not enough for anyone. But here's what Nietzsche discovered in his own journey beyond the herd. The wilderness offers gifts that the crowd can never provide. In the solitude of your own becoming, you discover capacities you never knew you had. You find strength you didn't know you possessed. You uncover wisdom that can only come from direct experience with your own truth. First, you develop what Nietzsche called intellectual honesty, the ability to see reality as it is, rather than as you wish it were or as others tell you it should be. This is a rare gift in a world built on comfortable lies and collective delusions. Second, you discover creative power. When you're no longer constrained by the expectations and limitations of the herd, when you're no longer editing yourself to fit into predetermined categories, your authentic creativity begins to emerge. You start to create things that have never existed before because they could only come from your unique perspective, your particular combination of experiences and insights. Third, you develop genuine compassion, not the false empathy of conformity, but the real understanding that comes from having traveled the difficult path of becoming. You begin to see others' struggles with clarity and kindness because you faced your own darkness and emerged with wisdom. Fourth, you find unshakable self-respect, not the fragile ego of the approval seeker, but the solid foundation of someone who has looked deeply into themselves and chosen to love what they found, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. And finally, you discover what Nietzsche called amor fati, the love of fate, the ability to embrace your entire journey, including the parts that hurt, the parts that scared you, the parts that isolated you from others. You begin to see that every step away from the herd was a step toward yourself. But with these gifts comes profound responsibility. When you abandon the herd, you can no longer blame others for your life. You can't point to society, to your upbringing, to circumstances beyond your control as the reason for your limitations. You become the author of your own existence, and that authorship comes with accountability. Nietzsche understood this as the burden of the overman, not a superhuman being, but simply a human being who has taken full responsibility for their own becoming. Someone who has stopped waiting for permission to be themselves, stopped seeking external validation for their worth, stopped hiding behind the crowd's expectations. This responsibility can be overwhelming. It's much easier to be a victim of circumstances than the creator of your destiny. It's more comfortable to follow someone else's path than to forge your own. It's safer to blend in with the crowd than to stand out as an individual. But this responsibility is also liberation. When you truly understand that you are the author of your own life, that your thoughts and choices and values are yours to determine, that your becoming is your own sacred project, you realize that you have more power than you ever imagined. The herd tells you that you're powerless, that change is impossible, that you must accept things as they are. But the wilderness teaches you that you're the artist of your own existence, that transformation is not only possible but inevitable, that things are as they are only until you decide to make them different. The journey beyond the herd is not a destination, but a way of being. It's not something you achieve once and then rest in, but something you choose again and again, moment by moment, choice by choice. Every day you'll be presented with opportunities to return to the safety of conformity, to abandon your difficult path of authenticity, to rejoin the crowd that promises belonging in exchange for your soul. Nietzsche knew this struggle intimately. He faced ridicule, isolation, misunderstanding. His ideas were rejected by the academic establishment, dismissed by his contemporaries, twisted by those who came after him. But he continued because he understood something that the herd never could, that the meaning of life isn't found in comfort or acceptance or belonging, but in the courage to become who you are meant to be. This courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to feel the fear and move forward anyway. It's the decision to value truth over comfort, growth over safety, authenticity over approval. It's the daily choice to honor your own becoming, even when others don't understand or support your journey. The wilderness will test you. It will show you parts of yourself you'd rather not see. It will demand that you face truths you'd rather avoid. It will require that you stand alone when everything in you wants to belong. But it will also reveal your strength, your creativity, your capacity for wisdom and love, and authentic connection. Here's something beautiful that Nietzsche understood. Those who journey into the wilderness don't stay there forever. They return, but they return transformed. They come back to the world with gifts, not to rejoin the herd, but to offer something the herd desperately needs, the example of what it means to be fully alive, fully authentic, fully yourself. You see, the herd isn't your enemy. It's made up of souls who are afraid to make the journey you're making, who are trapped in the same prison you once inhabited. Your becoming isn't a judgment against them. It's an invitation. Your authenticity isn't a rejection of them. It's a demonstration of what's possible. When you abandon the herd and return transformed, you become what Nietzsche called a bridge. Someone who shows others that the journey beyond conformity is not only possible, but necessary for anyone who wants to truly live. This is your gift to the world, not your conformity, but your authenticity. Not your agreement, but your truth. Not your safety, but your courage to venture into the unknown territories of your own becoming. The herd needs you to make this journey. Not because they'll all follow, most won't have the courage, but because they need to see that it's possible. They need to witness what happens when someone chooses growth over comfort, truth over acceptance, becoming over belonging. Your individuality isn't selfish, it's service. Your authenticity isn't rebellion, it's responsibility. Your journey beyond the herd isn't abandonment. It's the ultimate act of love. Tonight, as these words find you in your own darkness, you stand at a crossroads that every soul must face. You can continue to seek safety in the familiar patterns of conformity, to find comfort in the warm embrace of belonging, to lose yourself in the beautiful lie that acceptance matters more than authenticity. Or you can choose the wilderness. You can choose the terrifying, beautiful journey of becoming who you actually are. You can choose to honor the voice inside you that whispers of possibilities the herd will never understand, of truths they will never accept, of a way of being that transcends their need for your compliance. The choice is yours, and it's a choice you'll make not once but every day. Every time you're tempted to edit yourself for someone else's comfort. Every time you're pressured to conform to expectations that feel foreign to your soul. Every time you must choose between truth and harmony, between authenticity and acceptance. If you choose the wilderness, know that you won't walk alone. Others have made this journey before you. Others are making it now. And others will make it because you had the courage to show them it was possible. But more than that, know that in choosing your own becoming, you're choosing life itself. You're choosing to honor the sacred project of your own existence. You're choosing to become the bridge between what is and what could be, between conformity and authenticity, between the herd and the individual. The wilderness is calling. Your authentic self is waiting. The person you're meant to become is already there, in the space beyond belonging, ready to emerge the moment you find the courage to abandon the herd. What will you choose? In the comments below, don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me what you actually think. Share the truth that you've been carrying in silence. Speak the words that the herd would never understand. Begin the conversation that your authentic self has been longing to have. Your wilderness journey begins with a single step away from what others expect and toward what you know to be true. Take that step. The world is waiting to meet who you really are.